Nowadays, we like to throw around the word miracle a lot, don't we? I remember a while ago, a friend of mine got very sick to the point where the doctors predicted that he wasn't going to be able to survive. There was a very low chance that he would come out of that sickness and be able to continue his life. But the doctors kept working on him, they kept giving him treatments. Eventually, he was able to make a full recovery, and people said, it's a miracle. But it's not really a miracle, is it? Now, don't get me wrong, I thank God that he came out of that situation okay, and I thank the doctors that they were able to do that great work with him. I think that God was working through the doctors during that situation to bring about a better outcome, but it was completely within the realm of possibility from the very beginning that he was going to survive. You see, a miracle isn't something that is extremely unlikely. It's not something that shouldn't normally happen. A miracle is something that is entirely impossible according to the laws of nature as we know them. A miracle is something that should never happen. If you were to try something 1,000,000 times, a miracle would never occur because it's impossible. A miracle is an act of God that is so outside of the realm of possibility that it is undeniable that it was God's work involved there. Remember a few years ago, I got into a car accident. I was going down a hill around a curve faster than I should have been, and I ended up missing the curve, and my car ended up getting stuck in a river. And I was able to get out and call for help. It was difficult because the service there was terrible. And some of the people in my congregation, some of the people I went to college with at the time, said, "I'm so glad you survived. It's a miracle." It's not a miracle. I wasn't going that fast to begin with, just too fast to get the curve. I didn't hit the riverbank that hard, and afterwards I called for help like I was supposed to. It wasn't a miracle. I still thank God that I came out of that okay. God was still working in that situation, but it was possible from the very beginning. I've been watching a TV show recently that's all about basketball, and it's about this group of basketball players that are the best that have ever existed, and they're called the Generation of Miracles. There's nothing miraculous about their abilities in basketball, it's just talent. A miracle is supposed to be something that when you see it, there is no other explanation than God is at work in this situation. And so when Moses walked by a bush that was on fire, that was burning, and yet it wasn't being consumed, fire destroys. There's no simpler way to put it. The purpose of fire is to eat and eat and eat and consume everything around it. Fire destroys. So when Moses saw a bush that was on fire that wasn't being destroyed, the only explanation for that, this is a miracle. God is at work in this situation. The burning bush is a story that, it's one of those stories that you grow up hearing a lot. You know, it's one of those cute Bible stories that we like to tell kids. You know, God was able to light a bush on fire without it burning, or without it being consumed, rather. But it's a story that I think a lot of times we miss the point when we read through it. It's so easy to find these stories that appeal to young children and then ignore the biblical truth in those stories for the sake of having a good story to tell. So today I want to look at the story of the burning bush and hopefully learn more about what God wants us to take from this story. And I want to start by telling you that in the account of the burning bush, God had a message that he wanted told. Have you ever wanted to tell someone something? It's really easy nowadays because we have these. If I want to tell Mallory something, it doesn't matter where in the world I am or where she is, I can get that message to her. About 10 years ago, that wasn't quite as easy. A lot of you probably remember it a lot better than I do. But there was a time when I couldn't just text Mallory and let her know, hey, I have this message to tell you. There was a time when I had to know where she was so I would know where to call. You know, the question, where are you, is a very new question because before cell phones were invented, you had to know where someone is to talk to them. It's really easy to get a message across these days, but 10, 20, 30 years ago, it was a lot harder. There was a lot of legwork involved in getting a message to someone, to the point that we had people whose entire jobs were to be messengers, to be couriers, to go and deliver messages from one person to another. But the importance of a message is never in the person delivering it, but rather the importance in the message is what that message is. Have you ever gotten a text or a message on Facebook that ended up being something completely unimportant? There was a trend going around about a year ago where people would post something on Facebook and say, tag your friends in this so they have to open their phone just to see this picture of a pickle. And the entire idea was, there's nothing important going on, I'm just trying to take up a little bit of your time. It's kind of similar to The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the story of someone who gave false accusations, false accounts so often that when there was something important, no one believed him. If you waste my time opening Facebook to look at a pickle too many times, I'm not going to pay attention to what you have to say anymore. But God didn't have a message that was a waste of time. God's message was important. Let's read, if you will, Exodus chapter 3, verse 7 and 8. Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 and 8. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. God's message was, my people are being abused, being neglected, being harmed, and I'm going to deliver them. It's not easy to watch people that we care about being hurt. It's not easy to see someone that we love, someone that we care about, and see them being abused, see them being hurt in some way. I remember once when I was younger, I was at an old congregation, and I don't know if a lot of you know this, but my sister has a disability that gives her a lot of trouble walking. She has to walk on crutches, and she uses braces on her feet because she can't walk on her own power. And I remember once at my old congregation when there was a little boy who was making fun of her for it. He was making fun of her, saying, you don't belong here because this is a place for people with legs. And I heard about that, and I very calmly and promptly went up and took him and slammed him into a brick wall. Because that's my sister. I'm the only one allowed to make fun of her for that. Okay, no one else is allowed to make fun of my sister because she can't walk. That's my job. Now, I don't like seeing the people that I care about being hurt. I don't like seeing people that I care about being insulted, being abused, being hurt in some way. God didn't like it either. These were his people. These were the Israelites, the people of God, and they are not to be abused by some other nation. God's not going to watch the Egyptians abusing his people and just sit by and take it. God's going to deliver his people. God had a message, and that was a message of deliverance, a message of hope. Imagine that you got a text one morning, going back to this analogy, and you open your phone, and the message says, whatever you've been struggling with lately, whatever's been on your mind, whatever's been stressing you out lately, I'll go ahead and tell you what it is for me. Grad school. I've been working on getting into grad school, and it is difficult. It is stressful. If someone texted me one morning and said, you are in this grad school, you don't have to worry anymore, it's a good school, and in fact, the tuition is going to be cheaper than you thought it would be. That would be a good message. Right? I'd have a good day getting that text in the morning. Imagine that whatever you're struggling with, whatever is on your mind, you get a text one morning that says, it's all taken care of. I have helped out. I have taken care of this problem for you. You don't have to worry about it anymore. That would be a good day. Right? Imagine getting that and all of your worries are just gone. God has given Moses a message that all of the Israelites' worries, I'm going to take care of them. I will provide for the Israelites. I will deliver them out of their abuse. I will take care of my people. That is a good message. And doesn't it show us how good of a God we serve? That he saw his people being abused and he said, I am going to take care of them. I am going to rescue them, deliver them. I will provide for my people. God had a message for the Israelites. But going beyond that, he gave Moses a mission. Because you see, while I fully believe that God had it within his power to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt without Moses' help whatsoever, he chose to do it through Moses. And I think that's a really great thing for us to see, that God can work through a man who, quite frankly, isn't the person that he should be in this story. Moses makes a lot of excuses in this account, especially if we go into chapter 4. We see Moses making excuses about how he doesn't have the ability to speak. He's not an eloquent speaker. He might have had a speech impediment of some sort, or he might just be making up an excuse. We don't know. But we see Moses making excuses that he doesn't have the ability. We see Moses making excuses that he doesn't have the authority. No one's going to listen to him. Who would pay attention to Moses? We see Moses making the excuse that, God, I don't really want to. And time again, we see God knocking these excuses out of the park. You don't think you have the authority? I will give you signs that you can perform that will give you the authority. They will listen to you when you perform these signs. You don't have the ability to speak? Take Aaron. He is an eloquent speaker. He'll do the speaking for you. You don't have the willingness? Man, imagine telling God, I have the ability to do what you're asking. I'm just not willing to do it. Moses had a mission, and he was letting a lot of things get in the way of that mission. God was telling Moses, this is what I want you to do, and Moses wasn't willing to do it. I don't know if any of you guys have looked at this before, but if you go to any company, any business that's been started, they're going to have what's called a mission statement. And that statement, in a broad way, describes what this company, what this business is supposed to do. The goal for starting this business. The mission statement for 7-Eleven, which nowadays is most often known as a gas station, but it started off as the world's first convenience store. The mission for 7-Eleven was to provide more resources for the people than anyone else with better hours than anyone else. They were the first store to ever stay open for more than a few hours at a time in the day. 7-Eleven's mission was to have more resources for a longer period of time. Walmart's mission has actually gone through a few changes over the course of Walmart's existence as a brand, but their mission nowadays is to always be open, always be accessible, and always have what you need. That's why Walmart sells a little bit of everything. You know, if I'm wanting quality gear, I'll go somewhere else. If I want good shoes, I'll go to a store that sells better shoes. If I want good camping gear, I'll go somewhere else. But if you want just the basic stuff that you need, Walmart has it. That's their mission. It describes their purpose, what they are trying to do. Moses had a mission, share God's message. God wants the Israelites to know that they are going to be delivered. It's Moses' job to tell them. Imagine not being willing to do that. Imagine being given the best news of your life, and you just say, I don't want to share that. Let's take a different example. My dad recently had a struggle with back pains for a while. For a couple months, he was bedridden to the point where he could barely go outside and walk. And he had to take a lot of time off of work for that. When he eventually did go back to work, he was only working half days. Now imagine one day I get a message from someone that says, I have a pill that your dad can take that will cure his back pains for the rest of his life, and it will have no negative side effects whatsoever. Now let's imagine, first off, that that's even possible, because if someone told me that, I would block the number. But let's say that someone tells me that, and they are able to prove that they have this pill and that it works. And I don't want to tell my dad about it. I'm too scared. I don't have the ability to speak. I don't think he'll believe me. work for us, and frankly, we're not having to suffer any for the work they're doing. That's a really good deal for them, right? If someone came up to me and said, I'm just going to do some work for you and you don't have to pay me, that'd be a really nice deal. I believe earlier in American history we called that slavery, but quite frankly, that was a good deal for the slave owners. It was not moral, it was not humane, but that's a good deal. The person who is getting the work done for them is in the winning situation here. And so Pharaoh obviously doesn't want to let go of the Israelites. These people are doing good things for Egypt. They are providing for us. They are giving us more profit than we've ever had before. Of course, Pharaoh doesn't want to let them go. And for 10 plagues, we see Pharaoh says, yes, I'll let the Israelites go, and then he changes his mind. Whether he hardens his own heart or God hardens his heart, it varies from plague to plague. But for whatever reason, Pharaoh changes his mind. He says, I am not going to let the Israelites go, despite everything that's happened. You see, God had a message of deliverance, and Moses had a mission to deliver that message, but Pharaoh had a master. The Egyptian hierarchy was very interesting. The Pharaoh was not viewed as a normal king, right? If you go to medieval France, medieval Germany, medieval England, the king there is in charge of everything. He is the ruler. He is the final source of authority next to the Pope, right? Ancient France, medieval France, the king and the Pope shared authority. The king of state, the most important figure of the state, the most important figure of the church. They shared that authority, and they often worked together. There are great examples of kings who would deny the Pope for one reason or another. Generally, it was because they wanted to sin and the Pope was telling them not to. But there are stories of kings denying the popes. In Egypt, things were a little bit different. You didn't have the most important person in the state and the most important person in the church. You just had the most important person. See, the Pharaoh was viewed as one of the gods. The Pharaoh was viewed as the God's messenger on earth, in much the same way that we see Jesus as God's incarnation on earth, the Son of God come to earth, taken human form. The Egyptians saw Pharaoh in a very similar light. He was a god. He wasn't just a king who had authority because he decided to take authority. He was a ruler who had authority because he was one of the gods. And how could we deny the gods? That's a lot of power to hold on to. There's the old saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Fun fact, the first time I ever heard that story was an old Justice League cartoon when someone said it to Superman. The more power you have, the harder it is to let go of that power. Right? If someone came up to me one day and said, you can be president of the U.S. for 7 days, that'd be a lot of power to hold on to, and I would try to use that in the best way possible, but at the end of those 7 days, I think it'd be really hard to give up that power. We've seen it time and time again when people take power, and they might start off having good ideas, having good intentions, but they don't want to give up that power. Pharaoh, despite being the most powerful person in the land of Egypt, was a slave to his desire for more power, for more wealth, for more. Put whatever word you want after that. He just wanted more. He was a slave to that. The idea of getting more was Pharaoh's master. I'm sure some of you know people like that in the world today. Even if you don't know them personally, you know of them. You've read stories of them, articles in the news. People who, they've stopped caring about the people they were supposed to represent. They just want more power. I'm not making a political statement. I'm just saying the more power you get, the more you want. It is an undeniable rule of the way humans work. It is very hard to become powerful and still care about other people. Why do you think the people with less are often the first ones to give when others are in need? Why do you think that the people who struggle to survive paycheck to paycheck are the ones most willing to help out when other people are in need as well? It's not a coincidence. It's because the more we have, the less we want to give. Pharaoh had a master. He didn't want to give up what he had. It took the death of his firstborn child for him to actually let the Israelites go, and even then, he decided to chase them down. So my question for you today is, does God still have a message for us? This is a story that took place thousands of years ago. at least 4,000 years ago, possibly longer. This is an old, old story. And if you're anything like me, it gets to be difficult to care about old stories sometimes, right? I like history. I think it's fun to learn about. I especially like revolution history, the U.S. Revolution. But it's hard sometimes to read these stories and think, well, how does this actually apply to my life? Well, I'm telling you right now, God still has a message today. Even though it's thousands of years apart, God still has a message today, and it's the exact same message it always has been. I will deliver my people. I will rescue my people. I will provide for my people. God sees that Christians, that people today aren't in the best circumstance. God sees that a lot of us are being targeted by Satan. A lot of us are being abused, neglected, whatever you're dealing with. God sees your struggles, and he wants to deliver you from that. He wants to save you. He wants to protect you. Whatever you are struggling with, God wants to be the person who provides for you and rescues you from that. That is his message. Same as it was in Exodus, same as it is today. God wants to be our God. I am who I am. God is. He wants to be our God. He has this message, and he's always had this message from the very beginning. He wants a relationship with us. If you want to know what God's message is in Exodus, if you want to know what God's message is in the book of James, in 1 Samuel, pick a book of the Bible. God's message is, I want a relationship with my people. I want to be your God. I want you to be my people. I want to provide. I want you to love me, to worship me, and in return, I will save you. God just wants a relationship with us. God still has a message today. And friends, let me tell you, we still have a mission today. It's easy to look at Moses and see these excuses that he makes and say, man, Moses, why would you not just listen to God? Why would you not just go and talk to Pharaoh? Let me ask you, have you ever had someone that you wanted to invite to church, but you were too scared? Have you ever seen someone and you said, I want them to come to church with me. I want to invite them to talk to them about God, but what if they don't listen to me? What if I can't say it right? You know, I hear all these people, I struggle with this myself a lot. I hear a lot of preachers speaking so eloquently, and I think to myself, what if I can't do the same? What if I can't speak as well as these other people? And guys, we've just made the exact same excuses that Moses made. If you say, what if they won't listen to me? You're making the excuse of authority. They won't listen. They won't hear what I have to say. If you say, what if I can't do it as well as someone else? You're making the excuse of inability. I can't. The problem has never been whether or not you can. The problem is God can, will you? If you've ever said, I want to, but I'll just do this instead. I'll play a video game for a while instead. I'll go read a book instead. You've just made the excuse of willingness. I have the ability to do this, I just refuse to. We're not that different from Moses. It's easy to give him a lot of flack for these excuses, but I'd be willing to bet that everyone in this auditorium has made at least one of these excuses, if not all three of them, in their lives. I've made all three excuses. I've probably made all three of them within the year of 2020. In fact, I would hazard to say I've made one or two of them this year. We're only 24 days in. Yeah, 24. It's easy to make excuses. It doesn't change the fact that we still have a mission. Guys, there are people out there who are living in sin, who are living in all kinds of debauchery, all kinds of rejection of God. There are people who are living their lives in a way that if they died tomorrow, there is a 0% chance that they go to heaven. Isn't that sad? Doesn't that break your heart? That since I have begun this sentence, a couple dozen people have died not knowing the truth. Man, puts it in perspective, doesn't it? And I'm not saying that we should spend every last minute of our lives out evangelizing, because I love to sit down and read a good book as much as anyone else. But I think it's telling that since I've begun this lesson, hundreds upon thousands of people across the world have died not knowing the truth. What if we could have reached one of them? What if we could have found one of those people before they died and told them, this is the message that God wants you to hear. This is what God has to say to you. Who knows if they would have listened, but what if we had been able to talk to one of them? I have long said, since I've begun this job, I have said that when I started this job, we had 5 people in the youth group. And I said, if I leave and we still have 5 people in the youth group and they are still faithful, I will have done my job. I have said that if I can help one person to stay on the path of righteousness in their life, I will have accomplished my life's work as a youth minister. But we can do more than that. We have a mission. Go out and share the gospel with people. You don't have to spend every waking moment evangelizing. Watch a movie, read a book, play Mario Kart. It's fun. God wants us to have a fun life too. But the mission comes first. And it's not always going to be easy because the world has a master. You cannot serve 2 masters, for you will either love one and hate the other, or you will hate the one and love the other. No one can serve God and man. That's hard to hear, isn't it? Because there are a lot of things in the world of man that I like. There are a lot of things that I really like about the world that we have. I really like video games. I really like comic books. I really like my car and my laptop. But at the end of the day, who am I serving? Am I serving God, or am I serving comic books? Am I serving God, or am I serving my laptop? At the end of the day, where is my time going? We all have a master. And whether you have chosen to let God be your master or whether you haven't, you still have one. A lot of people don't realize that the world is their master. There are a lot of people out there, when we leave this auditorium, you're going to see a lot of them who are serving the world with every day of their life, and they don't even know it. Do you know the first thing that Pharaoh said when Moses told him that God was coming? Or the first thing that Pharaoh said when Moses said that the Lord wanted his people to be delivered? Go to Exodus chapter 5, verse 2. Exodus 5, verse 2. But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." You know, I don't blame Pharaoh in this situation. Because if he doesn't know who God is, why should he listen? Right? If you come up to me and you say, Jonathan Pendlebrook told you to go do this, first thing I'm going to say is, who's Jonathan Pendlebrook? I don't know who that is. Why would I listen to them if I don't know them? Pharaoh is directly opposing God without even knowing who God is. Now, later in this story, after Moses tells Pharaoh who God is, after Moses shows Pharaoh all of these signs and these plagues, and Pharaoh still refuses to let Israel go, then we can blame him. Then we can point out how hard of heart Pharaoh is, how little he cares for the safety of others. We can point out all of his flaws, but at the very beginning of this story, I do not blame him one bit for keeping the people of Israel. Because if he doesn't know God, why should he listen to him? We as Christians, as evangelists, we have the wrong idea sometimes about what evangelism is supposed to be. And I've been there. I've thought, all I have to do is go out and tell people what God wants of them, and they'll obey. All I have to do is tell people, God wants you to be baptized for the forgiveness of sins, and they'll go get baptized. God wants you to go to church, go to worship, and they'll start doing it. But we haven't taken into account that the world out there doesn't know God. Oh yeah, they know of God. They've heard people talk about him, but do they know him? You go out and you ask 100 people on the street who God is, and I'm willing to bet you'll get a couple of people who say, well, isn't he the one who is going to send us all to hell? Isn't he the one who killed all those people in the Old Testament? You're going to get a bunch of people who have the wrong idea about who God is. You might get someone who says, isn't God the person that they fought the Crusades over? Isn't he the one that people have killed and slaughtered and plundered in his name for thousands of years? Do you realize that the world doesn't know who God is? That's a hard pill to swallow for me because I grew up in church. I grew up learning about God. And so the fact that other people have this view of God that is so skewed, that is so tainted by what the world wants them to know, that's hard to accept sometimes. I know who God is, so they should too. Do you realize that the world has no idea who we come here to worship every Sunday? They think we're a cult. Ask people who aren't in the church. They think that we are a cult because they don't know who God is. There's this book that I really love. It's called American Gods by Neil Gaiman. And it is a story about idolatry. It's a story about what happens when we turn from the gods of old and start worshiping technology and media and all these things. And there's this deleted scene from the book. I say scene, a deleted chapter from the book, where the main character, Shadow, meets Jesus, the Jesus from the Bible. And he isn't what you expect. Because you would expect maybe if you're familiar with a lot of Renaissance paintings, you would expect a very thin, very gangly man who is covered in blood. Maybe you would expect a Middle Eastern man who keeps his hair short. Historically, that's likely what Jesus looked like, a very muscular man because he was a carpenter's son. You might expect that. But when Shadow meets Jesus for the first time in this book, he doesn't really look like anything. He keeps shifting his form. He keeps changing what he looks like, going from looking like someone who's visiting a baseball game to looking like old depictions of Zeus. Jesus keeps changing who he looks like. And when Shadow asks, why don't you look like one person? He says, because the world doesn't think I'm one person. They think I'm a million different people. You ask 100 people who God is, you're going to get 80 different answers. And you might get one of them that is actually accurate to the Bible. Doesn't it break your heart that the world doesn't know God? It should. Think about everything that he's done for us, everything that he has given us. Think about salvation. If you want a textbook example of a miracle, the fact that we have a chance to go to heaven is a miracle, because we serve a just God, a righteous God who has to punish wrongdoing, and we've all done wrong. There's not a person in this room who can say that I have never made a mistake in my life without lying. And if you say that, then guess what? You've just made a mistake. None of us deserve to go to heaven. If we got what we deserved, let's say a meteor struck this building in 5 seconds, and every one of us got exactly what we deserve, we would be in hell for the rest of eternity. And that's just fact. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to preach a hellfire and brimstone sermon. I'm giving you the facts. If we got what we deserved, we have no hope of going to heaven. But we do have a hope of going to heaven. We can be there. Isn't that amazing that God has opened that door for us? That's a miracle. You want the greatest miracle of all time? It is the miracle that we can go to heaven and be with God. Doesn't that miracle make you want to go out and tell people? You see, Moses saw a miracle that day at the burning bush. He saw a bush that was covered in fire, and yet it wasn't consumed. He saw something that should have been destroyed, and yet it was still there. And through that miracle, God gave him a mission. Through that miracle, God said, go and share my message. I don't care if Pharaoh listens to me. My people will be delivered. We deserve destruction. We deserve damnation for all of eternity. But the fact that we don't have it is, to me, that's the same thing that happens in the burning bush. Something that should be destroyed and survives. We should go to hell, but we have hope not to. And through that salvation, through that miracle, God is giving us a mission. Go out into the world. Share my message. Tell the people that I want to be their God. I want a relationship with them. Tell the people who are trapped in sin that it doesn't have to be that way. Tell the people who can't get away from their addictions and their vices that there is hope for them through God's message. Tell the people who have no one, the people who are lonely, the people who want nothing more than a family and a place to belong, that God is offering that to them right now. We have a mission to tell people that whatever they need, God offers it. Whatever they want, Whatever they need in their life, God is willing to give it because he wants to be their provider. He wants to be their God. He wants to be the person that they rely on and the person that saves them. But the world has a master. And we're not going to change the world in one day. We're not going to tell the entire world. We're not going to go out and tell them, turn away from your idols, and all of them just listen to us. You know how you change the world? You start by changing one person. You know how we save the entire world? We go out there and we find one person who doesn't know God, and we show them who he is. And we tell them, this is who God is, and this is what he's done for you, and this is what he wants from you in return. The burning bush at the end of the day is a story of one man sharing God's message to a group of people who didn't want to hear it. The story of Christianity, at the end of the day, is a story of one man coming to earth and telling his followers to share God's message, even if the world doesn't want to hear it. So my question for you this morning is, are you ready to share the message? You know your mission. You know what God wants of you. You know who in the world needs to hear it. You know what needs to be done today. My question is, are you ready to do it? There aren't any excuses anymore. We have the ability. We have the authority. God has told us that we can evangelize on his account. We have no excuses anymore. Are you willing to share God's message? Are you willing to share the message of salvation? If so, then I rejoice that we have more people who are committed to sharing the message of God. But if not, if there's something in your life that's getting in the way, it happens. Things get in the way of God. And if that's happening in your life, there's no reason to continue down that path. If there's something in your way this morning, if there's something stopping you from sharing God's message, you can come forward, you can make that known, and we as a congregation, as a family, will be there to support you. And if you haven't let God be your master today, if you haven't let God be your provider, your sustainer, if he is not your God this morning, and you want him to be, if you want God to be the person providing for you, and that is something that we are more than willing to help with today. So this morning, as we close out this lesson, if there is any way at all that this congregation can help you, I invite you, I implore you, I beg of you, come forward and make that known while we stand and